Hello everybody. So welcome to the new video where we are going to cover more about the team building and communication. Here actually we are going to cover a lot explaining the critical role a project manager has to play in building the team and making sure the performance of the team is also great. So let's take a deeper look, even though we covered this earlier regarding the project manager role. Let's take a look at what is the specific difference between a functional manager and also a project manager role. So in this role, we can say that a manager will be more focusing on a day-to-day activities where he will take a look at the efficiency and the people side of the overall managing the activities. But when it comes to a project manager, his leadership quality has to be excelled to an upscale, where he has to manage with all the changes. He has to have a good understanding about the long-term vision about the project, and also he should be very resourceful, he should be very innovative, and he should be sticking out his antenna and sense what kind of changes is happening around the project, because he has a plan and he strictly follow this plan. Sometimes or most of the cases is not going to be that effective, so he has to understand the circumstances really well, and also he want to make sure he is ready to cope up with the changes. So managing the changes, adapting to the changes, and making sure the team is well equipped to cope up with the changes is a critical skill, and I would say the most important skill any project management should have. With that context, let's take a look at about the qualities. What are the key qualities that a project manager should have? He should be a system thinker. I'm going to quickly go through all these specific qualities, and to detail that out, that even itself is going to take a specific video session for that. But let's explain at least what this means. Systems thinker. A project manager should really be a person who understand and execute everything in a process way. He or she should have better organization skill. That person should have a high level of personal integrity, honesty, factfulness, stating everything correct. Whatever he said to one team should really jive into what he's stating the other team or other person. That kind of factfulness, honesty is really need to be maintained. He or she should be proactive, so that he can make sure all the risk is assessed correctly and all the risk can be managed perfectly too. He should have a good knowledge about the domain, business equipment. That is nothing other than whatever the project that he is involved in, he or she should not be that familiar with the domain, but at least to have a minimum understanding. A person who is managing insurance project, a person who is managing transportation and logistic project, a person should be able to manage construction project. They may not be expert in that, but they should be able to understand and gain knowledge and be a quick learner to adapt to the needs. Otherwise, he should not be able to challenge certain decisions. He should not be able to make quick decisions based upon the particular setup. Communication skill. I don't think I need to explain that more. A project manager should be a good communicator. Time management skill. This is nothing other than you should be able to juggle the stuff. What activities is more important? What activities are urgent? Don't mix up with the urgency and importance of the messages or action. A time management skill is one of the number one skills that a project manager should have. Political skills. That means he or she should have a good understanding about how to manage certain power struggles within the organization. He should have a better understanding about the organizational culture and who are the power players. and last but not least should have an optimism. Even though project manager is considered because of a lot of questions that person is asking before a detailed planning, people may think this person is not pessimistic. In fact, I do have an honest opinion. Most of the project managers are optimistic, and they do ask these questions to make sure they can increase the probability of project being successful. Now, let's move on to the team building or team development process. This is one of the very famous, one of the established, one of the proven mechanism that we used in team building exercise. So if you look into this particular slide, any team building exercise, including any informal team that you are building, it must go all these 5 stages. For example, let's say you build a team for just playing any game. First thing, you should be able to form that team. Informing that we normally call as a honeymoon period, where people try to say hi, bye kind of situation, very friendly, very happy, and try to understand each other. So that is one of the happiest moments that you can see in any team building fashion. But pretty soon you will start to identify, just like after the honeymoon period, personal differences, opinion differences, likeness, dislikeness, values, architectural principles, guiding principles, personal styles, extrovertness, introvertness, of even the food they like, the place they go. A lot of things come into play, and that personal conflict arises. That's the reason that stage we call as storming session. When we go to the storming session, actually to build a very efficient team, the less time that you spend in the storming, that is always better to create a high-performing team. If you are a good project manager, if you are a good leader, this is the time you spend maximum energy focusing on the team, so that it will not be disrupting the team, but in fact it's creating a venue, it's creating a forum, creating a playground where everybody can perform their best. So normally, if you are a good leader, the storming will be very small segment of time, and you move on to the norming. Norming is where we build the relationship more stronger, and people start demonstrating what they could do for the team, and they move on to the performing. Performing is the stage where we can see the output is coming. The results are being produced, and once the performance is done, it's adjourned. So let's take a good example about these principles in our vacation project too, just for the fun, just for the understanding. In fact, let's say if we are going for vacation with more than family and everything, to make it a little more understandable, there is a session, there is a period where we spend more time in forming the team. And once we form the team and align this role, then we can see the personal differences or conflict, where we move on to the storming session. When the leaders are stepping in, or when we identify, sometimes if a group of people, this is the period a person within the team is stepping out and form a leader. And then the storming session is changed into day 1 of a vacation. You start having an operating model where you can see people are enjoying the vacation, and as they progress, day 1, day 2, day 3, and day 4, we are actually in the norming and performing stage. And at the end of the day 5, when the project is done, we are moved on to the adjourning phase. So Tuckman's model is one of the famous models that we can apply in any team building exercise. Again, to emphasize, underline the point here is that all project team has to go through these 5 stages, and the more intelligent, the more proficient you are in the project manager role. Your objective is not to exclude the stages, but to limit and reduce the time involved and spent on this stage so that the team is easily moving to a high performance kind of setup. In other words, if you are not a good leader, if you do not have a good project manager, the team will be churning in and in into the storming, and they always have personal conflict crisis, and they never get to a normal phase or a performing stage. Now, a couple of other things that we have to consider how to build a high performance team. There are certain things which may be outside our control, but a lot of things which we could manage as being a good project manager. The first thing, let's talk about the recruiting. In the recruiting stage, this may not be an easy thing because most of us believe we are not pushed into a project manager role with the opportunity to select all the team members. A lot of times what really happens is that the team were already selected and you were recruited to manage the project. In that case, you should not able to change anything. You don't have any luxury to even select the team. So you will end up spending some time and trying to align and recruit. But there are some cases where project managers are hired first before the team is formed. If you are one of that luckiest person, your objective is to recruit the best talented people, a good mix of people. I would say don't always go for the best candidate only. That can even also raise some personal conflict. But if you have a good mix of people, good set of people, which contributing factors, then that will be the best scenario that you can develop a team from scratch. Now, the other area is about performance team meeting. There are a lot of time that we spend on meeting and collaborating and everything. You should always have a specific, efficient way of running the meetings and collaboration. I do not want to spend much time to say how to conduct different meetings, what are the tips for conducting efficient meeting that you can find and search and find out later. But here the objective is that all kinds of collaboration, all kinds of meeting, does not matter face-to-face or virtual, should have a specific agenda and details to that. Then establishing a team identity. That means you might have seen in case of this in the sports team and everything. The first thing, they will come up with a uniform. They will come up with a logo. They will come up with a lot of things to say we have an entity, we are a group, we are a set of pack people that we have a shared vision. That is also good to know because people start believing in, people start motivated by work towards a specific goal or a vision. Reward system. Of course, performance can vary between different teams. Certain people are motivated by certain things versus the other are not. So it's always better to reward the best performance or encourage and motivate the team even perform more better. Decision-making ability, that is another thing that you have to let the team know. Even though you are there as a leader, you are not there all the time to make decisions. It's always better the team members make the decision in their level of authority. If all the decisions are pushed onto you, of course, you will not have enough time. You are not the right person to make that decision. You may not be knowledgeable for all the decision-making capability. So you end up spending more time in conflict resolution, collaboration, and coordinating to arrive at the decisions. So you have to spend some energy and time in educating the team members how we can do critical thinking, how we can make effective decisions throughout the project's life cycle. Conflict. There is a slide which we are going to cover in detail, but this is something we cannot avoid. Any team, there is going to have a conflict. It all depends upon how early we understand the conflict root causes, how exactly we apply certain techniques in resolving those things. There is something which have utilized in different corporation about team building exercises. How exactly we can create off the work, off the track, some sort of activities so that we can identify some strength and weakness, and we also find a better venue how team members can collaborate and come together to meet certain objectives or goals. Coming to the conflicts. The conflicts can happen for various reasons. A lot of times we think the conflict, the root cause is personality or the style, their belief. In fact, that may not be the right reason. There should be some underlying reasons that drives to the personal conflict. That conflict you have to understand. Is it because of some priorities? Some people are more priority in work versus life versus decisions, technical opinions, something like that. So it's also about the priority. It's also about the schedule. It's also about the resource availability between different departments. It is also the technical decisions that we are making, technical opinions that we have to solve certain problems. There should also be policies and procedures that we have to follow. We have to analyze whether there is any differences between those policies and how those policies and procedures can be implemented in the project. There should be some cost reasons, budget availability, budget cutting, budget reallocations, financial support that we can get from senior stakeholders to support or cut the project, and last but not least, the personality conflicts. Though I agree, some of the conflict can happen because of personality conflicts. Majority of the conflicts are triggered, are initiated, are fired up from different reasons, and the more you deep dive into those areas and the more quickly you can understand the root causes, it's very easy to resolve. Now, what are the couple of techniques that we could use in resolving the conflict? There are actually 7 ideas is shared here. There are actually 7 techniques shared in this slide. In the order of effectiveness, the first one is being the most effective one, and the last one is the less effective one. I am going to give some example, a good example, to let you understand what these techniques means and how it can be applied in project management world. Let's say we find the people are coming late to work. At the same time, the organization also implement a policy. Everybody should be in the office between 9:30 and 3:30, where 9:30 and 3:30 is defined as the core business hours. If that policy needs to be maintained in the project setup, we also want to implement you being a project manager or leader. So let's say, what is forcing mean in that context? Forcing means that if you find a particular resource and the project is coming late, and you approach this person and tell them, we do have a policy you have and you must come tomorrow onwards before 9:30, and you cannot leave the office after 3:30. That kind of implementing, imposing the rule with the authority, with the power that you have is called forcing. And of course, being human being, that may not be the best case scenario, that may not be the best solution that we can implement. Now, let's come to the withdrawal case. What is withdrawal? Withdrawal means that you are noticing this resource is coming late, and without doing any action, you just simply withdraw as if you have not seen that incident, and assuming this person is going to change is also not a right solution. That approach is called withdrawal. Smoothing means that you do have a casual chat with this person and understand the positive and negativeness and reasoning behind that, and try to see whether this person is getting it, and again hoping this person will change his or her behavior going forward. That process is called smoothing. The next level of implement is compromise. Compromise is again similar to smoothing, but we try to understand the conflict in a little more deeper way. Maybe this person is coming because of train schedule or because of the family reasons, whatever it is, and we try to compromise a little bit on that so that it's more accommodative. Collaborations means that, let's say, find out this person is really coming late because of the train schedule, or probably 2 days in a week this person has to drop her or his kid to the daycare before coming to the work, which is causing them problem. So we found out what is the impact of it, and we tried to collaborate with other team members and whether the other team members can also solve that problem. That mechanism is called collaboration. Last but not least is the problem solving. In the problem solving approach, we find the problem. On the one side, there is a strict policy being implemented, everybody has to follow. Other side, there is a personality, priority differences where that employee has to find some time where he or she does not have any leeway in coming up earlier for 2 days in a week. So we analyze that further and find out what are the possible options, what we could do. Is somebody can cover it, can she change that to at least 1 day per week so her or his spouse can take care of that 1 day. So instead of 2 days per week, it is 1 day per week now. Or probably this person is coming probably half an hour late, whether they should be able to cover that half hour later, whatever it is. So we look into the root cause of the problem. We come up with some suggestions and recommendations, and we look through that effectiveness of the solution, and we arrive and resolve that conflict. So these are the different techniques that we can apply. Even though I explained this scenario, even though I explained these 7 different approaches, this can even be very, very complicated and definitely can be applied and provide a best solution for any kind of conflicts can happen for your project. Like a resource being pulled out, for a functional manager say this is the time that allocated. A vendor is consistently being delayed in delivering the raw material. A person is the vendor is probably not providing sufficient data in invoicing to support how much time they spend. The vendor is actually, or the supplier is changing the unit price that was not agreed in the contract. There are a lot of conflicts can happen, and there are different root causes also. But we have to analyze and find out how we can solve this problem by going through these techniques. Now, about the communication. This particular video, we are going to cover about the communications team building exercise, but I just want to wrap up with about the importance and relevance of project manager being a good communicator. The project manager often spend more time not communication in the sense just chatting, but the reason to have that communication skill, this person is the one who collects the data, disseminate the data, provide the data to different stakeholders, including customers, senior stockholders, sponsors. So every time the information that person is presenting is factual, but presented in different details. So you have to make sure the data, the information that we are providing is proper, relevant to the context, and also need to make sure it's factual and honest. 90% of the project manager's job is being spent on this communication. And also we have to use different levels of communication. Sometimes it could be formal, written, sometimes it's formal, verbal, sometimes it's very casual, verbal, just like a water fountain kind of situation where you're communicating casually to get more support or get information passed to the stakeholders. Different types of communication that project manager has to go through in the project life cycle to keep the project moving and making the project successful. Saying that, hope you have enjoyed this session, And in this session, we have covered primarily there are a couple of areas including how to build a team, what are the critical skills a project manager should have to manage, to develop, manage and grow teams, and how the team conflict can be resolved, what are the couple of techniques that we could use, and last we wrap up this session with importance of communication management, importance of communication skill, and how effectively and how and where the project manager can use that skill in making the project successful. Thank you.